Hey guys, I'm Eddie Kalegi, and you're listening to episode 175 of the Who's on Top podcast.
And welcome back to episode 175. Dan, did I do that right?
Pretty good.
All right. Well,
You
Dan
did it right, especially stopping to ask Dan if you did it right.
Well, Dan's the normal host of the show, but since we're talking about college ball today, I'm taking over hosting duties. We also got two special guests who we'll introduce in a second. But first, the regulars, all the way from Johns Hopkins University. I don't know if he's there right now. Jeremy Giles. How you doing, Jeremy?
Well, I'm good. I'm actually back in Jersey as of 2.5 hours ago.
I
But
forgot
yeah.
the break is late. But anyway,
It's good.
congratulations.
Yeah, we're just starting a break. Just got back from California, seeing some family. What happened? My parents went to a tennis tournament where there was a bee invasion.
I saw that. Carlos Alcaraz had to run
yeah.
away. I saw that.
He got stung by a bee, the world's #1 tennis player. See, that's how I'm doing.
Tennis players not immune to bee stings, we have learned. Then we also have our usual host of the show, backup in Ithaca. Just missed him on spring break because he went down to Nashville to drink some beer, crush some beers, and listen to some country music. Dan Fox.
Yes, beers were crushed. Country music was listened to. And yeah, I don't really feel like I deserve this demotion, but I'll take it in stride and try to do better for next week.
You'll be
Or
back next week.
week,
Don't
I
worry.
guess.
You'll be
Later this
back.
week, we do MLB free agency. MLB preview, which I'm very excited about.
And that special guest will be Michael Kazin. But we have two special guests now for college basketball. First, I call him, at least a lot of us call him, the prodigal son. He will be your earwaves soon. Josh called him the next No Eagle. That is Eddie Kalegi.
Excited to be here. I did this last year with you guys. I think Ellis said to run that episode solo, but I'm back now for year 2 of this, and I'm excited to break some college basketball down with you guys.
And then finally, in a college in a competition with the Sam Fetterman for the one and only biggest college basketball sicko. He was on the road for 3 weeks. 2 of those weeks were spent covering the crappiest college basketball teams. One of those weeks was spent in Aruba, much deserved vacation. The one or number 2 college basketball sicko we haven't decided yet, Alec Crouthamel.
Wow, I'm honored to be compared to Sam like that. I mean, he's a true sicko. But yeah, I was here last year too with Eddie. Happy to be back. I promise I'll try to make some better takes this year. One of them, I don't remember if it was this podcast or on Eddie's podcast. I said UConn would lose in the first round. It might have been both actually. I think I said on both actually. But yeah, I promise I'll try to make some better takes this year.
Now let's move on to March Madness. Here's how it's gonna work. There's 5 people on the Zoom. We brought in 2 winners that know college ball. We'll talk about each matchup. We'll fill a bracket, and then we'll vote on it. Obviously, some will be quicker than others. Example, we're not going to spend a lot of time on 1 and 16 teams, though. Maybe with a certain team, we will. So yeah, that's how it works until we reach a consensus on who's going to win it all. Majority rule, there's 5 of us. This should be easy. Honestly, Dan and Jeremy maybe don't know the most ball, but you know how March Madness works? It goes on 5 anyway, so they probably have a better bracket at the end of the day. So let me share my screen, and here we go.
And let's start off. Actually, how about we start off with this? Let's talk about, because the selection committee, they selected 2 hours. Well, I don't even know the time right now. 2 hours ago, they selected the bracket. This is brand new. So before we start filling out the bracket, I want to ask Alec or Eddie, either order, your thoughts on how the selection committee did. Some snubs, some surprises. Take it away, one of you guys.
Yeah, I guess the 3 things that I guess stuck out in my mind were first the lack of the Big East. It felt like Seton Hall and St. John's were almost locks coming into today, but I mean the bid stealers came out. The committee chair for the selection committee said that they had 3 bids stolen in the past 2 years combined, but this year they had 5 alone. So that was pretty crazy. Kind of knocked them out. The other obvious, I guess, glaring point was the inclusion of Virginia, and I'll say Michigan State as well, because Virginia has absolutely not played well of late. I know it doesn't go into the selection criteria, but their brand of basketball is not exactly the prettiest. And Michigan State, their resume just doesn't have the same luster as the number 4 preseason ranking should have had. Florida Atlantic being on the 8-9 line was also pretty crazy because they have a win and a loss in every single quadrant. And I think they have a win and a loss in every single quadrant home and away too.
Yep.
So that was something that definitely stuck out to me as well. And the Mountain West, I mean, they got all 6 of their teams in that were expected to get in, but considerably lower than I thought they should have been. Colorado State was the last team in, according to the selection committee. New Mexico State wouldn't have even made it had they not won the tournament yesterday. I just felt like that conference got a little bit undervalued. I mean, Colorado State, like I said, last team in, they had some great wins in the non-conference. And I mean, that was a conference that they kind of all beat up on each other. And I think they kind of showed the strength that they had. So those were the three main things that stuck out in my mind.
Yeah, I think adding on to that, there was a lot of like previous history that was, I think, brought into the mind of the committee. And three good examples of that are Michigan State not only being in the tournament, but being above the last four in. Obviously, Virginia getting in over three Big East teams and Indiana State, who all were more deserving, and Oklahoma, I'd say too. I think there were honestly five teams that were much more deserving of a spot than Virginia. And the fact that Gonzaga is a 5 seed at the same level as St. Mary's. They should not be in the same seed line of that team. St. Mary's, I think, is the much better team, and they proved it a few days ago. Overall, I don't think this is the worst bracket. I think there's some questionable things, but as we'll get through here, the things that really surprise me, Purdue, to me, has an absolute cakewalk through the first couple of rounds. They'll find a way to mess it up, but they do. And then UConn, who's the #1 overall seed, I think is in the most difficult region by far. I mean, you've got Auburn, Iowa State, Illinois, San Diego State, BYU, all capable teams. So despite being the #1 overall seed, I don't really feel like UConn was really rewarded.
Yeah, and I do, before I preface what I'm going to say, I do want to say that this was by far the hardest bracket to make because, as Alec mentioned, 5 bid stealers. The last 2 years, there's 3 combined. So I didn't envy the committee. But I think the biggest issue is, and you've mentioned all the other ones, so I do think Michigan State should have been in, just not in the 9 seed line. But I think the biggest issue by far was the Mountain. The Big East, yeah, it sucked, but it was also, they just kind of got really unlucky too. But I think the biggest issue is the way they seeded the Mountain West. Complete disrespect for that conference. And then their explanation was that they all beat each other up during the conference. But if you look, the Mountain West was the only conference where every single one of their teams had a winning non-conference record. So that shows they were strong outside of their own conference. And yes, the Mountain West has historically disappointed in the tournament, besides last year, of course, shout out San Diego State. But I mean, when you win your out of conference games and the committee claims to care so much about out of conference, and then you get completely lambasted for that, just seems absolutely insane to me. It just felt very, very contradictory to what the committee has done in years past, which was absolutely ridiculous. But as I said, it was really hard. And I agree with the rest. FAU should not be an 8 seed. Wild. The fact that Gonzaga and St. Mary's are on the same seed line when St. Mary's like walloped to them is also so silly. But also, I do want to acknowledge the fact that the committee had its hardest job that I ever remember. Brad Wachtel said it was the hardest job too, and I respect his opinion as well. So I do want to acknowledge that for the committee. But yeah, I think they got a good amount wrong. Though overall, I don't think they did overall, I mean, it's really hard. So I don't think they did a horrible job. But let's get into it. With an easy one, UConn, Stetson. We'll put up the little preview button. But I think we all agree. If you don't agree UConn's the best team, we all agree they're the second best. And Stetson's definitely the worst team in the entire field. Can I just pencil down Stetson and can we move on?
Yeah.
Okay. UConn. Sorry, UConn. Pencil UConn.
I don't know if UConn will go back to back, but it's not ending in the first game.
Yeah, they're not ending the first game. All right, next we got 8-9 seed FAU Northwestern. I'll give my opinion first on this one, then we can go down the line if anyone disagrees, and I think we will, because I think FAU is extremely overrated, and I think Eddie said it, Florida Mid-Atlantic, and Dusty May is also, I think, a good coach, but also a little bit overrated because last year what made them so successful is they're very much an isolation offense. And what made them so successful is their guys were really hitting their shots. And they have big shot makers, which helps for March. And they're experienced in March. But you saw that come bite them in the butt this year when their guys were cold and they were missing shots and losing to a couple Q4 and Q3 teams that they should no business losing to. Meanwhile, Northwestern, I think Collins is one of the most underrated coaches in America. Boo Booey's not going to want to go out in the first round of the tournament. I got a front row seat to watch him play, and yes, he did lose to a very good Wisconsin team, and yes, Northwestern's injured, but he was sensational. And you have to remember, Brooks Barnheiser, one of their better players, had a horrible game against Wisconsin, put in a real 1 out of 10 performance. He's going to be hungry. He's not going to do that again. I guess, the slight upset against FAU, and I got Northwestern. If anyone else has got FAU, speak now.
Yeah, here's the thing. I agree with everything you said. However, I just feel like the depth issues that Northwestern's facing right now, I feel like it's just going to be a little bit too much to overcome. I agree that FAU has been overrated all year long. I don't think they deserve the hype that they got, and not because it's any of their fault. I think people kind of fell in love with them a little bit too much before the season, giving them that preseason top 10 ranking was a little ridiculous, in my opinion. I mean, they got some of the wins. They got the win over Arizona in the middle of the season. They played close against Illinois, teams like that. But I feel like they're just going to have enough to take home this one against Northwestern. Not without a lack of effort by Boo Buie. I think he'll put up another 27 points or something like that. But I just don't think they're going to have enough, unfortunately, because this is a Northwestern team that at full strength could really go far and make the second weekend, in my opinion. But I just think they're too injured right now. Ty Berry was so important to that team. I just don't think it's going to be enough.
I do
Yeah.
think there's one more player that's being forgotten here, though. Ryan Langborg, who was huge for Princeton last year and helping them get to the Sweet 16. I know Northwestern is lacking depth. I don't think either of these teams in their current form are capable of going on a run, especially when you look at who they're going to have to play in the round of 32. But I give the leg up here to Northwestern just because of what Boo Buie can do on his own as a shot maker. And Northwestern did win in the first round last year against a team that's just outside of the high major ranks.
I kind of agree with Alec on this one. I think it's just, to me, Northwestern's just too injured right now. Ty Berry, Matthew Nicholson, even if they play, they may not be 100%. It's a one-game team. The FAU did really well last year and have a history of being here. Again, their defense is a major concern, so I don't think they're necessarily going far, but I have to pick FAU on this one.
Hell yeah, research. All right, let's vote on it. Me and Eddie got Northwestern. It sounds like Dan and Jeremy got FAU, which means Dan, our resident viber, is going to vibe this one out.
All right, give me your wait. Oh, give me your each side. Give me why I should pick your team in one sentence.
Boo Buie. That's all I'll say.
Goo goo.
Boo Buie.
Okay. Other side.
Northwestern's very injured.
All right. Obviously, Jeremy knows more, so I'm going to go with FAU.
All right. Let's move on to San Diego State, UAB. This is an easy one for me. I'm not, I don't know that much about UAB. I'm not going to lie when I don't know a lot about a team. And Alec probably can speak to them a little more. But I just think San Diego State, yeah, they lost the Mountain West tournament final game, but Jaden Ledee is a grown man. They obviously got into the finals last year, and I don't think no one on UAB scares me. And yeah, that's my take on it. But anyone who knows UAB more might want to chip in. No, can we move on? All San Diego State? All right.
I got nothing. I got San Diego State.
All right. I was surprised UAB was a 12 seed. Maybe I was disrespecting UAB. But here's an interesting game. I think is interesting, at least. Auburn, Yale. Yale kind of got undershadowed in the Ivy for how good they were because
Can I say one thing about UAB quickly? Just why
Yeah.
they couldn't? So I think the big thing with them is they were just really hot right now.
All right.
Essentially they won 15 in a row, and that's kind of basically how they got to the 12 seed.
Shout out research. All right. But yeah, Yale, Auburn. I think Yale got a little undershadowed this year because of how good Princeton was in the Ivy League. But here they are, and Princeton's not here. And this is a very good team. As a Danny Wolf, this means something to me, man. Danny Wolf was caught crying today after winning the Ivy League title. 14.5 points per game. He's fantastic. Got good touch around the rim. I think this is a game that's going to be closer than we all expect. But I still think this Auburn team is just too dynamic, just too good, and they'll eke it out. But I do want to say I think this game will be closer, and I wouldn't be like mad if someone would be like, this is going to be an upset. But yeah, that's what I got. So I got Auburn.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way, Ellis. I think Yale is every year these Ivy League teams seem to be underestimated because they're undersized, but they have shooters and they find ways. And Yale was kind of forgotten about all year. They've got the mojo now from hitting a buzzer beater to beat Brown to win the Ivy League. But Auburn's just been really talented and I think undervalued all season long in what's a really stacked SEC. So I agree with you, close, but I go Auburn.
Yeah, I'm with Eddie. I think Auburn has been a little bit underrated throughout the year. They're a streaky team. They always will be under Bruce Pearl. But I think they have the best player in the game in Janai Broom. And I mean, when you're already the better team, that's kind of all you need. And I think Auburn wins this.
All right. So let's put in Auburn unless, they agree. All right. BYU versus Duquesne. I still don't know why this team is pronounced Duquesne, but it is. Duquesne has talked about getting hot at the right time. Duquesne has been very good recently. This BYU team play amazing offense, shoot the three lights out, incredible ball movement. Their defense has been extremely questioned throughout. Duquesne are led, as you see on the screen right here, by Day. Day, who is, I mean, you can talk a lot about him, but he is very much a bucket, pulled an upset in the Atlantic 10 tournament. They were not favored to win, but they've been really good recently. I still got BYU. I also just, maybe it's just first off, BYU is a good team, but I love watching BYU. I've watched them a lot just because it's fun to watch them. And I'm going to say they keep dancing here and we get to watch them for another game.
Yeah, BYU really underrated group this year in what's a really good Big 12 conference. Duquesne, I like that team, but I can't see them building vibes after they fired the confetti off 18 minutes too early in the A-Team championship today. So I got BYU.
I will say they didn't score for like 10 minutes after that happened.
Yep.
That was pretty crazy. Although to be fair, Duquesne does still have the Drame twins. They both transferred in from LaSalle from that St. Peter's run a couple years ago, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think, yeah, BYU's been such a dynamic team all year long. They really have not skipped a beat since moving up from the WCC to the Big 12. I think they roll here.
All right.
I will say
Go ahead.
I'm good with picking BYU. This does feel like one that could be an upset. They're back in the first time after a long time. I'm good to pick BYU. I'm saying this, calling it now. I think this one to me feels like one of the upsets. And yes, it is.
Both teams can win, baby.
Well, I'm picking Duquesne. I'm saying I know we're going BYU.
No, I get it. You want to put your eggs in all the baskets, but you only have so many eggs, Jeremy.
What a hater. All right. Illinois, Morehead State. Honestly, I think Morehead State was a bit overseeded. I don't like this team. Riley Minix is really good, but none of them. I didn't realize Jordan Lathan was averaging 15.4 points per game, but this is a horrible offensive team other than Riley Minix. And Illinois is just going to overwhelm them with their athleticism, with their size. I am a little worried that Illinois played on Sunday. I hate teams that play late and then have to go. I know it's a still Thursday layoff, but a lot of teams had a better layoff, including Morehead State. But I'm picking Illinois. I don't think this, maybe Morehead State can drag it in the mud a little bit, but when it comes down to it, Terrence Shannon is getting his, and I think this one's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, Terrence Shannon over the last week has been the best player in college basketball. He is going to do enough here, and I agree with you. I don't think Morehead State's bringing much to the table.
Anyone want
I will say Illinois' defensive struggles are going to keep them from making the Final Four, but it's not going to be in the first round.
Yeah, and the thing I will say is Illinois, yes, they've been struggling defensively, but they can like it's not like BYU, which we'll talk about later, where I don't think they can play defense. I think Illinois can play defense if they could just get the right chemistry going, because they got some good defenders. All right, Washington State, Drake, and I think in this bracket, this is going to be my choice for first upset. I love this Drake team, and I picked Drake for the upset last year, so I guess I just always love Drake. But I mean, Indiana State, they got overshadowed by Robbie Vila and Indiana State, who are also great, and they'll be a 1 seed in the NIT, and they should be watched. But this Washington State team, they're just not that talented. Like Kyle Smith got the most out of this Washington State team, and I think it ends here. Drake might have the better bucket getters. First off, Tucker DeVries should be an NBA draft. He will be an NBA draft pick. He is so good, has a 3-level score, IQ really, really good as well. And I think he's the type of player, when you're looking for upsets, you're looking for a guy that in the clutch time can make a shot. Out of Washington State and Drake, that guy's Tucker DeVries. He is the best player on the floor, and that makes it primed for an upset. I think this Drake team is really, really good. They dismantled a really good Indiana State team, and they're still being disrespected a little bit because of their conference. I think they're going to easily upset Washington State.
I completely disagree. I think Drake's really good, but I really like what Kyle Smith has built at Washington State this season. One of the best years for that program in recent memory. I know it's kind of a flashy pick in a 7-10 situation, especially in the past with mid-majors from the Midwest, thinking about the success of Wichita State and Murray State through the years. And Drake's been good the last couple of seasons, but I just think they got a bad draw right here. Frankly, I think they would have the capacity. I'm looking right across. If they were playing Florida, I'd pick them over Florida, but they've got Washington State. And I think this is going to be a close game that goes right down to it, but I like the Cougars to defend the 7 seed and move on.
All right, Alec, anyone else want to give their input or their vote?
I think I think I'm with Ellis here. I think Washington State might have peaked just a little bit too early near the end of February, where they got the win over Arizona. They went on that long winning streak of, I think it was there about 10 games or so. I think they just peaked a little bit too early. They have not looked the same since. They took some really bad losses towards the down the stretch of the season the past couple of weeks. I mean, losing to Washington, that was already a bad loss to a team that was going to fire Mike Hopkins. Losing to Arizona State a couple weeks before that, a tough loss to Colorado. I just think they peaked a little bit too early. I think this is going to be a game that goes down to the wire, which should be expected as a 7-10 game. But I think Drake, just like you said, Ellis, has the best player on the floor. And I think just this Drake team has been battle tested by going up against teams like Indiana State, which I know is weird to say when you're talking about a team from the Missouri Valley Conference. But I just feel like they have it right now. And I think with Washington State, they're not on the upswing of their season right now.
You know what? Let's have the upset. You guys persuaded me on this one. I'm down for Drake. Let's do it.
All right. So we got an upset. Our first one of the evening, though I assume there'll be many more. One that's not going to be close or an upset. Iowa State. I'm in love with this team. They're extremely underseeded. And I'll be honest, I know nothing about the South Dakota State team. So if anyone wants to clue me in why they might have a chance, they can. But I think this one's going to be a blowout, maybe by my own ignorance. But yeah, I got Iowa State in a blowout. Anyone else disagree?
No, I mean, Iowa State could have been argued for a 1 seed after what they did to Houston yesterday. They're a really good team.
UConn FAU in the round of 32 in the East. And as you said, I think even if we pick Northwestern, UConn is so freaking good. Incredibly, they're the best offensive team in the country, in my opinion. I know Alabama has the metrics, but I still think UConn is. And their defense isn't half shabby either. This FAU team, unless they just get so hot, I can't really see a way FAU or Northwestern beat UConn. They don't even have the size for it to even deal with Donovan Clingan. I think I got this one in a blowout, if I'm being honest.
I mean, UConn's the number 1 overall seed for a reason.
Yeah, this feels like one of those games where FAU is going to stick around for like 25 minutes, and then you're going to blink and UConn's going to be up 20. I just think they're too talented offensively. They're too locked in right now, and they have lost some of the pieces from last year, but I mean, they have the experience of winning a national title. So yeah, this is going to be an easy UConn win.
All right. And as a Rutgers fan, seeing Cam Spencer in a different jersey still pains me, but we'll move past that. San Diego State, Auburn, a really intriguing matchup. They're so different stylistically. I'm not sure what to make of this matchup. I think San Diego State can outmuscle Auburn, but as we said, Johnny Broome, even though Jaden Ledee is fantastic, I think Johnny Broome is probably slightly better, even though Jaden Ledee has the better numbers. And Auburn can kind of score at will. They got really hot. They won the SEC tournament. Maybe that means they're peaking too early. I'd be inclined to slightly lead Auburn, just because they're also battle tested in the tough SEC this year, and because I just think they have more bucket getters. Whereas sometimes in March Madness, that's just all it comes down to. Who can get me a bucket? I think this will be relatively close, but I got Auburn, but I'd be willing to be persuaded otherwise.
I feel like this is one of those games that could legitimately come down to a buzzer beater. While Auburn likes to play fast, pick up a lot of points, San Diego State's not going to allow them to do that. That being said, I feel the same way. I think they've got better bucket getters. I think they can be clutch. I think Jalen Williams is a very underrated piece of that team. He'll probably get drafted by the Thunder too, with the way things work for other Jalen Williams in college basketball. I'm going to say Auburn in a nail biter here moves to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think to me too, it's also just Auburn's just such a balanced team this year. I know, for instance, they're both top 15 in adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency. They've been playing really well. So I think to me, it's the balance from Auburn, because balanced teams tend to do better in the tournament. So I would say I'm going with Auburn on this one.
All right. That means Alec isn't putting up a fight, so we got Auburn, BYU, Illinois. And I think this is where BYU's run ends. And it's simply because of defense. I understand Alex said that Illinois has also had their defensive struggles, but if you really want to talk about defense struggles, it is BYU. And yes, BYU can make a run in the tournament just because it's hard. It's scary picking against them because they can make 20 bombs in one night. But Illinois, BYU is not athletic. They just rely on an incredible offensive system. Illinois, if they're locked in defensively, especially Coleman Hawkins guarding that point of attack, he can guard Khalifa, right? Khalifa is usually is BYU's point of attack because of his such unique skill set. But Coleman Hawkins has that same exact skill set. This is just a nightmare matchup for BYU. I would have loved before the bracket came out to put them in my Sweet 16, but I just can't in good consciousness. I think Illinois, this is just a perfect matchup for Illinois, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
When I filled out my bracket, this is actually the only upset I have in this entire region.
Ah.
I think as good as Illinois is with Shannon and Damask, and you mentioned Coleman Hawkins defensively, I think BYU is really going to space it out, use the perimeter, not push too much inside and challenge Hawkins, and they can have a good shooting game. They can make things interesting. And Terrence Shannon, as great as he's been these last few games, you wonder maybe when that's going to run out. Illinois did just play 3 consecutive days in the Big Ten tournament, and compared to other conferences, Big Ten, you don't get a lot of rest before the NCAAs. And I think, we've seen this in the Big Ten before. If your name isn't Tom Izzo as a head coach, you have lots of trouble making it out of the first weekend. And Brad Underwood knows that all too well. I think BYU, in a close one, upsets Illinois and goes to the Sweet 16.
Alec?
Yeah, I'm really wrestling with this one. I feel like this is gonna be another game that comes down to the last second, and I will say with Coleman Hawkins, I feel like there is a really good NBA player in Coleman Hawkins. If he can just, the only thing that's keeping him from there is, himself, for lack of a better term, because he's as versatile of a big as I've seen in college basketball in the last few years, I'll say. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that the Big Ten plays the last game in the conference tournament every single year, and you have to go through that absolute gauntlet. They went against Nebraska, they took them down. They went up again. They always play high scoring games. Illinois has this year. I just feel like this might be the game where they get just out bombed. And we all know Brad Underwood struggles in the first weekend of the tournament. It just feels like this is going to be a shocking upset where it's going to be like a 90 to 85 game almost with certainty.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm going for the upset. I think
wow.
I think for me the thing is with BYU is they can be streaky, right? So I'd say because of how fast they can score in their firepower, I'm gonna pick BYU in this one. I think Illinois has been very good, but I think the Ravens here.
Yeah, any thoughts?
Nope.
Head empty, no thoughts, but that's an upset. We got BYU. Let's move on. Drake, Iowa State. And unfortunately, I'd love to crown Tucker DeVries and this Drake team with the Cinderella shoe. But I mean, they are 10 seed, so maybe Cinderella's a bit too, I don't know. Either way, as I said, I'm obsessed with this Iowa State team. And I think that Iowa State got underseeded. And this is, I think, the fifth best team in college basketball. And they're just going to shut down Tucker DeVries. And on the other end, it's not like Drake has this elite defense. And yes, I know Keyshawn Gilbert is their top scorer, but I'm going to mispronounce the name. Someone help me. The European rookie, I'm just going to say that because I can never pronounce his name. I don't know why. For Iowa State, he's just been such a difference maker for them, the freshman. And someone help me out. What's his name? I say his name? Mihailovic? Is that it?
I think Mihailovic. Yeah.
All right. Well, either way, he's going to be the difference maker in this one. I got Iowa State. All right. Seems like everyone agrees. Let's go into the Sweet 16. UConn, Auburn. And again, unfortunately, Auburn in this one, in my opinion, hits the UConn buzzsaw. Yes, no team has won the NCAA tournament back-to-back since 08-09. Florida, coached by the one and only Billy Donovan. Not to be confused for Trilly Donovan. But UConn they're just a buzzsaw, man. They're incredible. They have really no flaws. And Johnny Broome, yes, he'll probably get his at the end of the day, but I'm not concerned about him necessarily. I mean, obviously I'm concerned about him if I'm picking UConn, but I'm not concerned about him leading Auburn past UConn. I got UConn.
Yeah, it comes to an end here for Auburn. UConn has so many ways they can beat you. They go to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, they're just they're such a versatile team. They can, like Eddie said, he said what I was going to say. They can beat you in so many different ways. I mean, Cam Spencer will randomly go off for 20. Alex Caraban is a triple-double threat, I feel like, almost every game. Stephon Castle, as a freshman, has become one of the better distributors. And, of course, you can't forget Donovan Clingan, the star sophomore. There's just they're so versatile in so many different ways they can win. I think they end Auburn's run.
Yeah, I agree with that. What I will say is I think this will probably be a closer game than a lot of people expect. I think this one might go down to the wire just because of how good Auburn is.
All right, then BYU, Iowa State, and I'm sorry, the BYU has to. I wanted them out against Illinois, but it has to end here. Iowa State has the perfect defensive scheme for BYU. BYU just cannot handle Iowa State's physicality in this one. Though Khalifa probably will get his. And again, BYU could always go on a heater, but remember, this is going to be the next week. So if they went on a heater the first 2 rounds, that could easily cool off. I got Iowa State.
Yeah, I think Iowa State to this point, again, these are two teams that are familiar with each other, both in
Yeah.
the Big 12. First conference game we've gotten on this bracket. Iowa State is the clear second best team in this region, and they're going to move on.
Yeah. No
All-
argument.
Yeah. I will say it doesn't look like they'll succumb to the it's hard to beat a team 3 times because I mean BYU has already beaten Iowa State once and Iowa State's played so much better since that matchup way back in early January. So yeah, I think they roll here.
And then we had a lot of green, which I like, but this one we got UConn, Iowa State. And I think if you're UConn, you got to be pissed off that you got Iowa State as the 2 seed because I think most 2 seeds they would still roll through. Like, looking, I think they'd roll. I mean, they already did roll through Marquette. I think they'd roll through Tennessee, and I think they'd roll through Arizona. But I think Iowa State, I think they could win this game. I really, really do. If anyone can beat UConn, it's going to be Iowa State. And you know what? I'm picking the upset. You know, UConn is the buzzsaw, but every dog can't have their day. I have Iowa State in a game for the ages in overtime. But again, like I wouldn't be upset if we picked UConn because I think UConn is obviously the best team in the tournament. But the best team in the tournament doesn't always win. In fact, they usually don't win. Shout out Kansas last year. A lot of other teams that I can name a million one teams. Duke from 2019. So I got Iowa State.
I think there's a pathway. And frankly, I think Iowa State is a tougher matchup than UConn would draw in the Final Four from that
I agree.
region
I
below
think it's a
them.
great point, Eddie. It's a great point.
Yeah. That being said, I mean, what sets UConn apart, we can see it from the past week. All these other elite teams getting tripped up in their conference tournaments, UConn still unfazed. And back-to-back days, they go from winning a 95-90 shootout against St. John's, where both teams dropped 50 in the first half, to then a defensive battle where they still win by 16 over Marquette. I think it's going to be more like that game against Iowa State, but it's right now, it's just impossible for me to pick against Danny Hurley and the Huskies.
And also Iowa State, while they've been good, they haven't been as dominant on the road this year. They're 4-5 in Big 12 games on the road. They've been very, very good, but I just think against a team as good as UConn, I don't feel like we can pick against them at this stage.
All right, Alec.
Yeah, I'm very much torn with this matchup because it feels like it really could. I think it just depends on UConn is going to be inevitable in their efforts. I think it's going to come down to can Iowa State hit their shots, which sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. I think this matchup is going to be the one day that everything really just goes right for them, and I think they pull a massive upset and knock out UConn. But at the same time, I mean, if some of those shots aren't hitting, UConn could very well blow this team out too. It really depends on can Iowa State hit their shots? And I think in this matchup, they will be able to. And I mean, that's what it took when Creighton blew them out. They shot a ridiculous percentage from the field and from the 3-point line. I think Iowa State just has a really good shooting night and takes down the number 1 overall seed.
All right, Dan. Mr. Wiseman, give us a tiebreak. UConn, Iowa State. Who's coming out of the East? And I will say, actually, I'll let you go first.
Looking at the stats. Wait, hold up. Oh, wait. Why do they reverse order it? Why do they go assists, rebounds, point, whatever? All right, give me one. Sum it up in one sentence. Why I should pick your side.
All right, I'll do Iowa State again. Iowa State has as one of the few teams that has the defense and physicality to keep up with UConn.
UConn has 5 elite players, won their conference tournament, and won a natty last year.
I think I have to go with UConn.
All right.
I think I have to.
So UConn comes out of the East thanks to Mr. Wiseman. And I don't hate the pick, obviously. They're the best team in the tournament. I was just picking an upset. So let's go on to the West. I think one of the weaker Wests ever, probably. I don't know if anyone wants to contest that, but we got North Carolina versus, well, I can't preview this one. Whatever. This one's going to be versus Wagner or Howard. Either way, North Carolina is going to absolutely smoke these teams. Though I do like the fact that Wagner, I like Wagner. I like Donald Copeland. They only have 7 players on their team, but either way, North Carolina's going to absolutely smoke them. I'm not even going to discuss this game. An intriguing game. Mississippi State versus Michigan State. 2 teams us 3 Rutgers fans know a lot about because Rutgers played both of them this year. And for me, I got Mississippi State. I think this team, they deserve the 8 seed. So I don't want to say they're underseeded because they deserve the 8 seed, but I think they're better than their 8 seed suggests. They're one of the better defensive teams. They've got good size, and Josh Hubbard just gives them that valuable dynamic of go get me a shot, I'll get it, which Mississippi State hasn't had the last couple of years. And I think because of Josh Hubbard, now he is a freshman, which scares me because he can go cold in the tournament. He's never experienced the tournament. But if Josh Hubbard can get hot, I think they beat Michigan State team. And yes, you never bet John against Tom Izzo in March. We know the John Rothstein saying. But I just don't think this team has had mojo all year long. For as good as Tyson Walker has been, he's struggled with his shot as of late. Malik Hall's kind of stepped up in his not absence. He's still getting points, but with less efficiency. Malik Hall stepped up from an efficiency standpoint, but they still don't how are they going to guard Tulu Smith? Because they've still have a weird Tom Izzo's still doing that weird rotation of bigs, and no one's going to guard Tulu Smith. And Mississippi State, I forget his name, but that big that pieced up Rutgers, that's their backup big. And I don't think Michigan State has a big to compete with him right now, even though they have 2 talented freshmen. So I got Mississippi State. They're going to dominate down low.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I'm going to go Michigan State, but this one's really a toss-up. I think the combination of Tyson Walker and AJ Hoggard will lift them over a younger Mississippi State team, but I do not this one is really just a toss-up for me, honestly, when I was filling out my bracket. I could really go either way. I'll say Michigan State, but I don't really care on this one because I think both teams definitely capable.
Yeah, it's tough because like you guys been saying, this is a Michigan State team. They have the talent. They just have not yet been able to put it together this year. And Ellis, the guy you were talking about, the 6'10", 280-pound monster Jimmy Bell that ate Rutgers alive at almost the 2020 game. I mean, that was ridiculous. But yeah, I agree. Josh Hubbard has that go-to scoring ability. They got Tolu Smith back for the stretch run. Well, not the stretch run, but he missed the first few games of the season, has come back and been as expected once again. I just don't know if this Michigan State team has it. You mentioned the really weird big rotation that Michigan State has used. They have the talent. I mean, Tyson Walker is one of the best guards in the entire Big Ten. AJ Hoggard's been there before. Malik Hall, like you mentioned, has played very well. But yeah, they still got that weird rotation where sometimes it's Xavier Booker. Sometimes it's Carson Cooper, Monty Sissoko. It's very strange. Monty Sissoko started a lot of the games, but I just don't think he's that good. Xavier Booker's looked pretty good in his limited minutes. I just don't think this is the Tom Izzo team to get it done in March for once. I think they're a first-round exit. Mississippi State moves on.
I don't know. I think for me, this is one of those things where, at least in the first round, I don't really want to overthink it. Michigan State's been here. They have a history. They exceed expectations every year. They made the Sweet 16 last year. I don't think they make it past UNC for the next one. Spoiler, I guess, but I don't think they lose in the first round, especially when it's a Mississippi State team that's good, but isn't a team that world beater that we're all raving about. I'm picking Michigan State.
Mr. Wiseman, Mr. Fox, give me a tiebreaker.
All right, so we're looking at.
Listen. I'm not giving you a sentence anymore. We already explained our thought process, and you should be listening. So you're gonna pick it without a sentence this time.
Well, tell me what game we're doing first.
Mississippi State, Michigan State.
Oh my god!
Is Tom Izzo still alive?
Yeah.
How's his health?
He's doing healthy. He's pretty healthy.
Okay. Is Dak Prescott playing for Mississippi State?
No.
All right, so I'll go Michigan State.
All right, Mr. Vosman picks Michigan State. And let's move on to St. Mary's Grand Canyon. A Grand Canyon team that I still don't know much about, I won't lie. But, I mean, they always win their conference, I feel like. Or maybe recently. I don't know. But, again, I don't really know much about them. I see Tyon Grant Foster is averaging almost 20 points a game. But Aiden Mahomey, I mean, St. Mary's is the definition of a bunch of spicy white boys. You know that meme with the wine
Oh,
sack?
hold on. His name is
Exciting
Mahoney.
whites.
Mahaney, sorry, Mahaney.
If it was Mahoney, that'd be awesome.
Mahaney, I just mispronounced it. They're a bunch of exciting whites, and this Grand Canyon team, though they are pretty. I don't know much about this Grand Canyon team, so I like this. I like the St. Mary's team, so I got St. Mary's.
Yeah, St. Mary's has a tendency of faltering in March Madness, not against Grand Canyon. I watched some of the WAC championship last night. Grand Canyon plays a really erratic style of basketball, which I don't think is going to lend itself well. They're the type of team where they got to be hitting their shots to have any chance here because they turn the ball over a lot. They're really out of control, but they have talent. That being said, I like St. Mary's, and I think one player that's not on there to look out for, their center, Mitchell Saxon, who took full advantage against Gonzaga. I think against an undersized Grand Canyon team, it works out in St. Mary's favor, and they move on to the next round.
Yeah, I agree with Eddie. I think this Grand Canyon team just there's too much going on with them. I was also watching that game last night. I made up a little turn. I was watching some WAC skitball yesterday on my train ride home. I just made that up while I was watching the
Sure.
game. But yeah, I think St. Mary's had a horrible start to the year, and I think that's why they were on the same seed line as Gonzaga. Gonzaga's performances aside, I think that's why. But they really picked it up down the stretch, and they showed winning that conference. I think they're hitting their stride right now. Marcelonis is a huge piece. You already talked about Mahaney. He was really good as a freshman. He's been really good this year as well. I think they roll.
All right, Alabama, Charleston. And this, I think, I don't know, I always like these 13-4 upsets. I'm not sure why, just historically. And I think this one has a chance for an upset, and I'm 50-50 on this one. Alabama, yes, they have the number one rated offense efficiency-wise, at least last I checked. But they go on defensive lapses, and this Charleston team, they're solid. They stay the course. They know what they're doing. Like this is a disciplined Charleston team. They're not going to be phased by Alabama, right? They're just going to keep coming at them. It might not work at the end, but I don't think they're going to be phased by this Alabama team. So that's why I like Charleston a
They
little.
are on a 12-game winning streak right now.
Who? Charleston?
Charleston.
Yeah. No, I really like the team. My one thing against Charleston, they haven't had any big wins against the field this year, which does kind of suck. I like teams that have shown they could beat better teams. But I'm going with my gut this one, even though I think Alabama's much better. I'll go Charleston. I think it's a very composed team on a winning streak.
Yeah, I'm torn on this one, but Charleston was a popular upset pick last year, and it didn't end up going that direction. I think Bama is going to be able to put the load on offensively enough that Charleston won't be able to keep up. This one's going to be a track meet, and when you got a high major that can control the basketball in a track meet without turning it over that much, they're usually going to come out on top. So I think Charleston is going to need one heck of a shooting game and take advantage of Alabama's kind of Swiss cheese defense at times. But I say roll Tide.
Yeah, man, it's hard to pick against the number one offense in the first round. I don't know if this team's going far, but I feel like in the first round they're just going to overwhelm Charleston. I agree.
I think I'm with Ellis here. This very well may be the one or two highest scoring games in the entire tournament. I saw a stat that said that I think it was Charleston's 20-0 when they score 80 or more points. Now, granted, most of that was against some weaker competition than Alabama. But I feel like they're just going to have some they have the stylistic. They play some of the same style as Alabama in the high pace, high scoring offense. That was kind of why I think they could not take down San Diego State last year, which was a very trendy pick because of the stylistic differences. But I think they have that advantage this year. They're on a winning streak, like we were saying. I think Charleston takes them down. I just don't think Alabama has it defensively. I mean, looking at the two games against Florida in particular, because those were the two most recent Alabama games that I watched, Florida has not been exactly lighting the world on fire on offense. They're a pretty good team. Obviously, they made it all the way to the SEC championship, but they gave up 105 and 102. And then they also had that instant classic against Kentucky, 117-95. I just think the defensive struggles are going to be too much. I'm picking the upset with Ellis. Charleston moves on.
Mr. Vibesman, we got a tiebreaker. Alabama, the number one offense. First, Charleston, similar style. Can they pull off the upset? Give us
No. Alabama, even I know that offense is dirty. Yeah, we're going Alabama. Come on, guys.
All right, Clemson, New Mexico. Dan denies the upset. And this is another one I easily got an upset, even though I do really like PJ Hall. I really think he's good. But this New Mexico team, they got some juice in them. They just won. They just won the Oh, why am I blanking on the conference name?
Mountain West.
Conference. Thank you. I was about to say Midwest. That's why. Which I don't think they're mid. The Mountain West Conference Tournament. Jalen House was in their guard duo is just great. Their guard duo is just great. And with Toppin, I think Toppin gives him that third X factor that even though he didn't play great in the Mountain West Conference title game, he can give him that third X factor that could push them above Clemson, a Clemson team which has been very streaky. They're correctly seated at 6, but I've just never been high on them this year. They do have the Syracuse legend Joe Girard, and I'm sure Jake would have a couple words about him if he were here. But I think that, I think New Mexico guards overrun Clemson and they get the win. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think New Mexico is very underrated. They just carved through one of the toughest conferences in college basketball to win that. They're just as good as any other team out of the Mountain West. In my bracket, I came to realize that I really don't have much faith in the ACC this year, and I haven't all season long. Clemson is a good group, but as you said, they're streaky. New Mexico moves on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll say it again.
Oh.
I'll say it again. I was absolutely flabbergasted that had they not won that game against San Diego State in the Mountain West title, that they would not have made the NCAA tournament. This has been one of the strongest teams in the Mountain West all year long. Granted, they did not play very well down the stretch. They lost some really bad games.
Air Force.
To teams. Yeah, exactly. Teams like Air Force. That game was catastrophic almost. But I just think that they're playing well right now. I think Clemson just. They don't have the juice to keep up with this New Mexico team right now. Like you said, PJ Hall's been a really good player all year long. He's taken a huge jump this year. But again, I just think this is going to be a game where New Mexico this is going to be one of those games where it's going to seem like an upset based on the seeds, but when you watch the game, it will not seem like an upset. I think New Mexico wins not fairly easily, but this will be like an 8 to 10 point game.
Yeah. Viva los Lobos.
Yeah, Jeremy, you were just in New Mexico, so you bring them good vibes. Or not just in over winter break, but either way. All right. Next, Baylor and Colgate. And listen, everyone always loves to pick Colgate because they shoot threes well. They're always a fun team to watch. But I think I've learned my lesson from now on. They just don't have the physicality, the athleticism to keep up with these big programs. And it's the same way here. They don't have a guy that can keep up with Jacoby Walter. They don't have a guy that keep up with RJ Dennis. So every time, even though they run through their conference every year, in the tournament, they're just relying on a game where they never miss threes, which is possible, of course, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I think Baylor actually wins this one handily, though I still think what Colgate's done, I forget their head coach's name right now. I was trying to look that up as we speak, but because I'm blanking on it. But what Colgate's done and what he's done as head coach of Colgate, still Matt Langle, still should be really, really commended. But this team is just not built to win an NCAA tournament game.
Yeah, they're a consistently good program, but the Patriot League is a consistently bad league. And Baylor is a really good team this year. And this is a team that's made consistent runs over the last couple of years. Of course, their run of the Natty a couple of seasons ago. So Baylor, I think, wins this pretty handily.
Yeah, I mean it's just hard to pick against Baylor this early on.
Yeah, one of these years, Colgate will win an NCAA tournament game, and one of these years, Matt Langle will become a high major head coach. I think I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's because of these tournament struggles, but I mean, guys like Ray J. Dennis, Jacoby Walter, even the freshman, I probably butchering his name, Yves Misi, I think is his name. I probably butchered it. Yeah, and Jalen Bridges. I mean, that core has just been so good offensively. It's not the typical, Scott Drew defensively physical calling card team, but I mean, they just have too much on offense to overpower Colgate. But Colgate will eventually get theirs in the NCAA tournament, I think, just not this year.
Will they? Will they really? Well, Matt Langle's there probably. All right, Nevada, Dayton. And I just think this Dayton team is a little overrated because of what they did at the beginning of the year. Yes, Dayron Holmes is a top 10 player in the country. He's fantastic. But outside of that, I don't love their pieces. Nate Santos, been good. Scoring 12 points a game. But I just don't love him. I'm sorry, I don't love him. And I think Nevada, like the rest of Mountain West, got disrespected. Probably should have been around a 9 seed, though. Maybe a 10 seed is better because they can avoid now UNC in the West. But I think actually got Nevada. It is not in a blowout, but like not in a close game either. Nevada wins relatively easily. I think it'll actually be led by Keenan Blackshear this time. I love his game.
Yeah, I think this is a rare situation where the 10 seed is clearly better than the 7 seed. I know Dayton's had a couple of close games. They did a decent job against Northwestern and Houston, but they have no wins against the tournament field. They don't. And the Atlantic 10 as a conference is a shell of its former self. Nevada, again, one of those many teams from that stacked Mountain West conference, and we're going to get another double-digit seed from the MWC moving forward. I like Nevada.
Yeah, I think y'all
Yeah.
got. I think Nevada's been great. I think that they're a little bit underseeded. Gerard Lucas has been fantastic, and Dayton's just not been that impressive.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Dayton's just too inconsistent to take over, especially since Nevada's been playing extremely well of late. The end of the regular season on a huge win streak. I mean, they've just been so streaky in the right direction. They'll lose a couple of games and they'll win 5 or 6 more. I think they're flying high right now, despite the loss to a really good Colorado State team, which we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, I think they win this one.
Arizona plays Long Beach State. Last year, Arizona was upset as a 2 seed to a Princeton team that was, frankly, looking back on it, very underseeded. I don't think Long Beach State is underseeded. I think Arizona easily handles business this time. I think the only reason people are scared is because of history, but I don't think history applies in this one.
I think it's interesting. I know everybody's going to pick Arizona. In my bracket, that's the big upset. I don't like this Arizona team besides Caleb Love. I think if Caleb Love's shot isn't going down, they become very beatable. And again, this Long Beach State team is the craziest story in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
They announced they're mutually parting ways with Dan Monson before their conference tournament. They go on a run. They win 4 straight games. They make it in. This feels like a textbook situation of one of these mid-majors that gets a big upset in the round of 64 and then gets absolutely shellacked in the second round, because then you realize that this team's not very good. But they have a great coach, Dan Monson. Don't forget, he was the guy who got Gonzaga as a program on the map, and then he ended up leaving for Minnesota before Mark Few took over. This is my big upset. I know you guys are all going to go with Arizona, but in my bracket, that's the big shocker. I've got Arizona falling to a 15 for the second straight year.
I thought I was going to be alone on this one, but yeah, I think I'm with Eddie. Honestly, I think I thought I was going to be alone. I'm with Eddie. I just don't like this team. Caleb Love gets way too inconsistent at times. He's kind of a chucker at times. Omar Ballo is going to get his because he's a dominant big man. But a lot of times the success of this team kind of hinges on Keelan Boswell, and he's been pretty inconsistent too. I think he has a bad game against Long Beach State, and I think the magic of Monson and his crew, after 17 years he's been there now, I think it just continues. I thought I was going to be alone on this one, but I just don't know. Tommy Lloyd has not shown me enough in March that he can consistently take this program to higher levels.
Jeremy, you go first, actually.
You know what? We need at least one big upset.
Oh,
I
wow.
can't believe I'm picking a team called Long Beach, but you know what? Let's do it. The Long Beach State Beach. That is the team's name, is the Beach. Upsets Arizona.
All right. Was not expecting that at all. Eddie just must have given a really convincing argument, and Alec, of course, and Jeremy. I will say, what do you do if you're Long Beach State and you beat Arizona? Do you fire your coach or you say, come back?
I don't know. They're already boxed into a situation. He wants to leave. I mean,
Yeah.
he's in a situation. Why would he come back
Yeah,
when the
good
team
point.
clearly doesn't want him? He's going to get a much better job. Even if they do lose to Arizona, he's going to get an upgrade here this offseason for sure.
Fair enough.
It's like, why? Yeah. I don't think the question is whether the team wants him back. The question is whether he wants the team back.
Yeah.
Good point. All right. UNC Michigan State. I will say, I didn't have Michigan State going here, but if they could make them out of 32, this just feels like a Tom Izzo masterclass. But I'm not picking it because I really still don't think this Michigan State team is good. I don't think they're good. And yes, they were predicted preseason number 4. And yes, Tom Izzo is the king of March. But this UNC team, Elliot Cadeau, Mondo Baycott, RJ Davis, Cormac Ryan coming off the wings to drill every 3 and talk shit to you. Like, they come at you in waves. And I can't pick a team I guess you can pick a team just because of Tom Izzo, but like Michigan State's been underachieving all year. I got UNC.
Yeah, agree with you there.
I don't know.
Alec.
I don't know, man. It's tough because, yeah, I picked them to lose against Mississippi State in round 1, but I feel like this is just going to be something that nobody expects. Well, I don't know about nobody expects because Tom Izzo's been doing it for years, but it just feels like this might be a game where Izzo just picks off Hubert Davis. Armando Paycott will struggle from the floor and from the free throw line. He'll get his on the defensive end, but it just feels like one of those games where Tyson Walker's going to put up 30 points. They're just going to somehow find a way in the last seconds to get this game. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone here. It seems improbable, but that's just how Tom Izzo likes it sometimes. I don't know. Maybe I'm falling too much into the Tom Izzo and March trap, but I feel like if this matchup happens, I feel like Michigan State takes it.
Jeremy.
I'm going with North Carolina.
Oh, yeah, you got me for a second.
I like the Michigan State story. I do, but I do think at some point underachieving and it does matter. I just think to me more, I think the UNC team is very, very good. I don't think the Mississippi State team is near what this UNC team is. So I think in a lesser matchup, Tom Izzo magic matters more to me than it does against a top team with significantly better talent.
St. Mary's, Alabama. St. Mary's is peaking at the right time. They just blasted Gonzaga. I'm just a hater of this Alabama team. I'm not quite sure why. They give me bad juju. I understand that they're number one offense, but I'm just a hater of this Alabama team. I got St. Mary's. It's going to be a close one, but Aiden Mahaney hits the game-winning three and sends Alabama home. I mean, I think on paper, Alabama's the better team, and they match up well with St. Mary's, but I just think St. Mary's, yeah, I mean, this is the year they get over the hump. And I just don't really like this Alabama team, so I got St. Mary's.
Yeah, me too. I think this Alabama team's defense, it's just too flaky to make it to go too far. I think that it can overwhelm in the first round. It can overwhelm eventually, but eventually it's the Swiss cheese effect's going to happen. And I don't think they're capable of really beating a good team. Or I mean, they are capable, but I don't know if I see it happening.
I'm going St. Mary's. I think this is finally a year they make it to the second weekend. I do have doubts about Alabama containing Mitchell Saxon and Mahaney, so I'm gonna go in a close one, St. Mary's.
Yeah, I'm going with St. Mary's too. I think they just have too high of a ceiling. They're playing too well right now. I think if they didn't have that horrible start to the season in like December, they would be a 3 seed right now. Maybe that's a bit unpopular, but I'm going with St. Mary's.
New Mexico, Baylor, and I got New Mexico. I think because the West is so weak, I got the most upsets in the West, and New Mexico is one of them. I just love the vibes of this team. A Patino taking his team far. I know it's not Rick, but it's his younger son, Richard. And again, I just love the backcourt duo of House and Mashburn. You want backcourt duos in March, and that's what House and Mashburn give you. Yes, they can be a little consistent, but they've been on a heater. That stays. They overpower Baylor and get the win. But, Baylor's a very good team, so I wouldn't be opposed in saying Baylor.
Yeah, I was tough on this one. I thought it could go either way. I think New Mexico certainly has the capabilities to win this game. But again, I think the Big 12, because of how everybody looked at their strength of schedule and non-conference, forget how good that conference actually is and how good this Baylor Bears team is, that I think is right just a doorstep below Houston and Iowa State. So New Mexico, I think, keeps this game close, makes a real run at it, but I've got the Baylor Bears moving on to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think this game goes into overtime, but Baylor takes it over. Like I said, the duo of Ray J. Dennis, or not even just the duo. I mean, the Ray J. Dennis, Jalen Bridges, among others combination. I think it's just going to be too much for. I think that New Mexico has the top line talent to win this game, but I think Baylor's just more battle tested, and I think they're going to win this game in overtime. I will say.
Let's bring it to New Mexico. Let's get New Mexico in the Sweet 16, huh? I support it.
All right, Mr. Wiseman, we got a tiebreaker. New Mexico, upset, or Baylor, powerhouse. Who you got?
Lots of good points were made. But I think I gotta go with New Mexico. We're not having a lot of upsets. Jeremy was just there. The vibes are good. And yeah, the West is weak. So yeah, vibes, Jeremy, and weakness.
Sounds good. Jeremy
Yeah.
does have great college basketball aura, they've said. So, finally, in the last game of the round 32 in the West, Nevada, Long Beach State. Again, I don't think this Long Beach State team is good. I know they have a good coach that's fired, kind of. But I think this Nevada team, again, is underrated. Shouldn't be a 10 seed. I think they blow out Long Beach State. As Eddie said, Long Beach State, even if they do beat Arizona, they don't have the upset abilities to get past that.
Yeah, I think they get trounced here.
All right,
I think they win this game by 30.
North Carolina, St. Mary's. And this is where St. Mary's lack of dynamicism and athleticism catches up with them because UNC is just going to run laps around this St. Mary's team. I think that St. Mary's can keep up, but ultimately, I'm not less worried about Armando Bacot and more worried about the triple threat of Cormac Ryan, RJ Davis, and Elliot Cadeau. And I don't know who St. Mary's has to guard them really, because yeah, they beat Gonzaga, but Gonzaga's not, it's a down year for Gonzaga. So I think UNC gets the win.
Yeah, St. Mary's is really lacking at the wing spot. They've got a couple of really talented small guards and Saxon down low. At the forward spots, I don't think this team is good enough to keep up defensively with UNC. So Tar Heels roll to the Elite Eight.
All right, sounds like we got consensus. So let's move on to the other Sweet 16 game, New Mexico, Nevada. This is a toss-up for me, but let to keep the good vibes going with New Mexico and Richard Pitino. Because at this point, if House and Mashburn on a heater, they stay on a heater. I know this is agenda pushing, but I will push my agenda. It's the point of March. They stay on a heater and they guide their team in an epic game past Nevada. Though I am curious, does anyone know what the series was against them this year?
It was New Mexico won both games.
All right. Well, hard to beat a third team. Oh, I don't like that. They blew them out both games. No, one game they blew them out. The other game was close. All right. I'm gonna stay with New Mexico just because of my gut opinion, and that's what I gotta go with. Even though I didn't know that New Mexico won both games, I think that favors Nevada because it's hard to beat a team 3 times. Anyone else?
Yeah, I got Baylor in my bracket in the Elite Eight, so I think both Baylor and New Mexico are better than Nevada. So give me the Lobos.
I'm gonna say I might have to take Nevada in this game. I mean, the old adage is obviously it's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. In the 2 games that these teams played against each other, the first game was at the Pit. New Mexico actually blew them out thanks to a really hot start, and then Nevada just crumbled down the stretch as the game went on. Nevada only shot 39% from the floor, 4 for 17 from 3. They really struggled to get anything going on offense. The second game was a lot closer. It was 83-82 in regulation. It was a really back and forth game, honestly. And I just think Nevada is going to have the juice here. As much as I have loved New Mexico all year long, and I will say the Pit is number 1 on my college basketball venue bucket list right now. I just think Nevada is going to find a way to beat this team after looking at the first 2 games. I think they're going to hit their shots. They're playing well. I know it's probably all for naught right now because I think the consensus is New Mexico right now, but I just feel like if these teams were to match up a third time, I think Nevada would take it.
Unfortunately, Alec, you were outvoted, which means you got North Carolina, New Mexico in the Elite Eight. And this is where, I feel like UNC is just like a much, much, much better personnel version of New Mexico. And New Mexico doesn't have anyone like Cormac Ryan on the wing. And New Mexico could really use that wing, other than why do I keep forgetting his name? Toppin, JT Toppin. So I really think that UNC again, their firepower is too great for any other team in the West. They got lucky they got put in the West pretty much. Because I'm not that high in the UNC team, but it sounds like I am because I think the only one that has near firepower with them is Baylor. So I got UNC.
Yeah, the funny thing, the top half of the bracket I think is really good. I think the bottom half of this bracket, we'll talk about the Midwest region, I think is really lacking. UNC gets pretty much a cakewalk here. They're going to move on to the Final Four.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the South. Houston, this Houston team, I know they sucked against Iowa State in the title game, but that was the title game. Longwood State's going to absolutely be overwhelmed. This one's going to be over in the first 5 minutes. I got Houston.
Yeah, I just want to say Houston, I think as rough as that was, only scoring 41, a wake-up call for them. Kelvin Sampson's a top 5 coach in the country. They have a real chance to go far here.
And then Nebraska, Texas A&M is such an interesting one because this Texas A&M team sometimes look like they're a top 10 team in the country, and then they'll play a game where you're like, this team can't score. And they're just like, they just get so out of function on offense and defense, and they look like a bottom 10 team in the country. So they're completely bipolar. Meanwhile, Nebraska, they just going to chuck threes. And how can you blame them? You saw them score 17 straight points in 3 minutes against Indiana. They can do that against any team. Keisei Tominaga will not be denied in his first NCAA tournament game. The country's going to fall in love with him, and he's going to lead Texas A&M past. He's going to lead Nebraska past Texas A&M.
I disagree. I like Nebraska. We know what they've been able to do all season long, and Tominaga is going to try to bail them out as much as he can. Rank Mast is really good down low as well. But I just feel like this feels like a game where Nebraska is going to be shooting well, but they're going to be playing from behind. And I think Texas A&M defensively is going to lock in and hone in and keep the Huskers down. I know there's been times, as you've said, this team's Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know how well the scoring is going to be going, but I like the Aggies here. Nebraska's a great story. They looked good in the Big Ten this season, but this is going to be a classic case of a Big Ten team getting overmatched in the NCAA tournament.
There's always one game every year in the tournament where I say, this is not the matchup I wanted because I wanted to see these two teams win against a different team. Because I said earlier on, I don't care about their resume. This is my most casual take going into the tournament. I don't care about their resume or anything like that. Their wins, their losses. Texas A&M is a team that I wanted to see in the tournament, mostly because of the efforts of Wade Taylor. I mean, Ellis said it. They look like world beaters one day, and then they will lose like 5 straight to Vanderbilt, Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, and South Carolina the next. They're such a streaky team. I think this is going to be a weirdly low-scoring game based on the two teams we're talking about here, because I think they're very strong on defense. I mean, Nebraska, Hoiberg ball has become less about like a free-flowing, fun-to-watch offense like it was at Iowa State, and now a hard-nosed, defensive-centric team, which, I mean, to be fair, they are paired with a dynamic shooting offense with guys like Tominaga. Rank Mast can work at pretty much anywhere on the court as a big. Josiah Alec might be one of the best glue guys in the country, in my opinion. I just think that Nebraska is going to bring too much to the table on offense and on defense, and they're going to barely win in a fairly low-scoring game, more than people might expect, against Texas A&M, even though I really wanted to see them in the tournament.
And I will say before Jeremy goes that if Texas A&M will do win, and you had Nebraska, right? Yeah. I think Tyrese Radford, I know he's scoring 16 points a game, but he's been really bad some games. And he really needs to get it together and step it up for this game, because we obviously know his capability and his talent level. But I think the X factor is Jawan Gary. He's going to shut down. He's going to be put on Wade Taylor or Tyrese Radford, and he's going to shut one of them down because he's just that grizzled vet who can kind of take advantage. But yeah, Jeremy, go.
I mean, I think I have to go Texas A&M. I think they're both really good teams, and also with how streaky Texas A&M is, you all said it could really go either way. I just feel like with the amount they've done against top-end teams, it would be a disservice to pick them to lose in the first round. Again, I don't think they have the capability and the consistency to make it far, but I do think they win here in this first round.
Dan, Mr. Viveman, Texas A&M, Nebraska. Can you deny Keisei Tominaga or Radford?
I do want to see the Tominaga story, though. I feel like that'd be really fun.
Yeah, I'm all in on Big Tom. I mean, who doesn't know his story at this point? Big Tominaga. I mean, putting up those shots, doing the damn thing, and I wanted to see him continue the damn thing into the round of 32.
All right, Wisconsin, James Madison. An interesting one, because I think this Wisconsin team, even though they're a 5 seed, I saw them play in the tournament. They got 5 guys who can score buckets, but so does James Madison. And we saw that when they beat Michigan State. They cooled off a little bit from there. I mean, cooled off, they're 31-3, but I still say they slightly cooled off from there a little bit. But they got 5 guys who can score buckets. Terrence Edwards and TJ Bickerstaff are both fantastic creators, and that's what you gotta love about JMU. But Wisconsin, I just think I was ready to pick James Madison my first round. I still think Wisconsin's got it. Who's guarding AJ Storr? Who's guarding him? They didn't have to guard anyone like AJ Storr when they played Michigan State. AJ Storr leads them past JMU. But I mean, I wouldn't be upset with the upset.
Yeah, this is the game of the round of 64 for me. I feel so bad for Wisconsin drawing James Madison because the Badgers have been great this year. Heck, they just beat Purdue yesterday. And this team, I know they had their horrible February. 3 months into the year, I thought they could be a Final Four caliber team just because of how good AJ Storr is. They're all going to rally around Tyler Wall in his last stance with Wisconsin. He's been there for half a decade. Chucky Hepburn, one of the top 10 defensive players in the country, I'd argue as well, especially at the guard spot. Stephen Crowell, you see there, has been good for this team. They do have some depth, but not a ton. But James Madison is a athletic program that feels disrespected over the last 7-8 months. The whole thing where they almost didn't get a bowl game in football. This basketball team, the best mid-major team, I'd argue, in the country this year, and nobody talked about them. This is finally their chance to shine in the national spotlight. So I like James Madison winning a nail biter with Wisconsin again. I think the Badgers, any of these other 5-12 matchups, they beat the other 3-12 seeds, but against James Madison, they don't get it done.
Yeah, I'm going James Madison. I think James Madison has been very good. They started off really hot. They had a great tournament. I just feel like it feels like, yeah, time. I think Wisconsin is good. They don't feel like world beaters to me. I think this is upset. James Madison. Let's go.
Every year there's a 12-5 game where everybody wants to pencil it in, and they do. And then the 5 seed just kind of comes out of nowhere and kind of runs over the 12 seed. And unfortunately, I think this is the game. I mean, James Madison's been such a fun team to watch all year long. But I think after, like Eddie mentioned, the horrible February, and even for a bit of March that Wisconsin had, I think they're finding the right vibes right now. Like Ellis mentioned, I mean, AJ Storr is playing really well right now. I just think they're too dynamic on offense and on defense. Maybe not dynamic isn't the right word I'm looking for, but I think they're too solid on either end of the floor. But I feel like this is going to be a game that's going to be in double digits, but I don't want it to be, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, because I think James Madison can really keep up with them. I just think Wisconsin's playing too well right now. They've kind of gotten off of the funk that they had earlier on. They're starting to force turnovers at a little bit of a higher level, but yeah, I just think Wisconsin's going to be too strong right now. Now, will they win in the next round? That remains to be seen, but I think for now they take down the popular upset pick.
Mr. Weisman, popular upset pick or AJ Storr in Wisconsin? Who you got?
We don't have enough upsets on this board. Let's go with James Madison to shake things up.
Now, I will say 2 things. One, they were so when the camera panned to them when they were selected to play Wisconsin, they were so hyped and excited. They're not going to be scared of Wisconsin. Second thing is, I'm glad we picked them, even though I think Wisconsin's going to win, because I think they have a better chance of beating Duke. And I'll transition to that. Duke, Vermont, and Vermont is the Colgate of their conference because they dominate every year. They have a great coach. They're a well-run program, but they just never have the athleticism or the size to defeat any of the high majors. Same thing with Colgate. I think Duke wins this one very easily.
Yeah, I don't think there's much competition. Duke's had some slip-ups in the first round before against Lehigh and Mercer, not this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Duke rolls.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, let's move on. All right. Texas Tech versus NC State. And I love DJ Horn. I love DJ Burns. Who doesn't love DJ Burns? The big fella. But I mean, they played so well in the ACC tournament, but Kevin Keatts isn't a good coach. And they're just not, they weren't a good team the rest of the season. The team we saw in the NCAA tournament that played for 4 days brilliantly is not the team we saw for the rest of the year. And I just don't think that they can carry that on. I'm not even high in this Texas Tech team, but it was nice to see former Iowa player Joe Toussaint balling out for them. And I think Grant McCashin's a great coach. But like, I don't know. I love DJ Burns. And it would be awesome if he could make a run and be a national player that everyone talks about. But I just don't think they're a good team. And I don't think the 4 games where they played out of their mind means they're a good team. So I got Texas Tech.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I mean, they won 5 games in 5 days. They got to be winded from that. This is not that great of a basketball team. There's another bid stealer who's an 11 in the other region that I think will make much more noise. NC State's not going to do that. Texas Tech wins this one.
Yeah, it's always tough to forecast the matchups between a really good high major team against a high major team that was not very good and then won their conference. But I think Texas Tech is just too strong of a team. They have been all year long, and they're going to end NC State's run. As much as, again, I love DJ Burns, like Ellis said, who doesn't? But yeah.
All right. We all got Texas Tech sweep. Kentucky versus Oakland. Oakland, a team I don't know much about. And because of that, I mean, Kentucky can throw so many weapons at you. Yeah, they're a little undisciplined at times, but Edwards, Dillingham, Reed Shepherd, who's shooting 50% from 3 almost. Like, they have too many weapons for this Oakland team to pick. And I haven't even heard much about this Oakland team anyway. So I got Kentucky.
I watched Oakland's conference championship game. I've got a theory. I think Kentucky wins this game, first of all, but I think Oakland keeps this closer than people think because they got a guy named Trey Townsend who dropped 37 points in the Horizon League Championship. He's averaging 17 this year. He's an elite rim protector as well as a small forward, power forward. So I think he's going to make this interesting enough that it's going to propel Kentucky on a deep run this year, but the Wildcats walk away with the victory in round one.
Yeah, I also think Kentucky's going to run away with this game because they just have too much pure talent on offense. But I also want to shout out Jack Golke from Oakland. The guy has shot 327 3-point attempts this year and 8 from 2. Just wanted to shout that guy out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Jeremy?
No, yeah, you guys all said it. I think Kentucky.
All right, Florida versus Boise State, Colorado. I think, everyone's like, oh, Colorado's disrespected. Sure, fine. I don't necessarily disagree with that. But Boise State, come on. They were really disrespected. So two disrespected teams play each other. I'm not sure who I have winning. I think Boise State. I think Colorado, obviously, they have better talent. But I've just been unimpressed by Tad Boyle and the discipline of this team. They just get so cold. And when they're not hitting their shots, they get so defensively poor. So I'm going to have Boise State. And then I think I have Florida beating Boise State. But it'll be really close. And I kind of feel bad because I think a better matchup for Boise State could have had them winning in the first round, but I don't think this is the matchup. I think this Florida team, yeah, they got blown out in the not blown out, but they got beat handily in the SEC championship game. But Todd Golden's a good coach, man. And this Florida team is talented. I got them beating Boise State.
Florida's the best rebounding team in the country, but they did lose one of their bigs to a pretty gruesome injury today. He's going to be out the rest of the year. Boise State, I think you could argue they're the second most talented team in the Mountain West Conference overall. I don't understand why they're playing in the first four. I think they beat Colorado, and I think they beat a shorthanded Florida team too, and avenged their loss in the first round last year to Northwestern and moved to the round of 32.
I think I'm going to take Florida here. I mean, they're a veteran-led team. Like Eddie mentioned, they're going to be down Micah Handlogton. I think I said his name right. But yeah, that was a pretty ugly injury from earlier today, actually. But I just think this Florida team's been playing too well of late. Tough loss in the SEC championship game. They kind of ended the regular season on a bit of a stumble, especially that loss to Vanderbilt. Again, you cannot lose to Vanderbilt in March. But I just think Florida has found their way. They are scoring like crazy of late. They put up 102 against Alabama, 95 against Texas A&M in the SEC tournament. I think they win this one. It's going to be a high-scoring, close game, but I think Florida moves on.
Jaron.
Yeah, I think Florida's been a really good team this year. They've gotten some big wins over teams like Kentucky, Alabama, Auburn. They're won 11 of their last 15. I think I got to go Florida.
All right, Marquette, Western Kentucky. I don't know much about this Western Kentucky team, but I don't really care. Especially if Tyler Kolek's back, they're going to blow the doors off them. Maybe if he's not, they can make things interesting. But Shaka Smart is continually one of the most underrated coaches just because he hasn't always had the NCAA tournament success. But he got this team really clicking with Stevie Mitchell, and Cam Jones has been on a heater. And I just think this Marquette team, they could also win in many ways like UConn, even though I don't think they're as good as UConn, but I got Marquette easily.
Yeah, they're going to likely have Tyler Kolek back. I'm not the biggest Shaka Smart fan, but he is a really good coach in this team. I think the three Big East teams that did get in are going to be collectively motivated in this tournament.
Houston,
Yeah,
Nebraska.
I was going to say, I think that Shaka Smart's a bit underrated as an on-ball or an off-ball defender. He's always on the
He's
floor.
also an on-ball defender.
Yeah, well, depending on where the ball is, he is a defender. But yeah, no, I think if they get Tyler Kolek back, it's a huge boost, but they'll win this game anyways. I mean, Cam Jones has been playing out of his mind. Osei Iguodala is one of the best, one of the better versatile players in the country.
That push shot is ridiculous how much it goes in. I don't understand how it goes in like that. It shouldn't go in, but congrats to him. All right, Houston, Nebraska. And Nebraska, I love this team, but they just can't handle Houston's blitzing defense. They have passers, not to say they don't, but they just haven't shown me like when they came to Jersey Mike's Arena and Rutgers blitzed the hell out of them. They scored 82, but it was overtime. They really struggled, a lot of turnovers. Houston's a better version of that. So I think Houston wins this one actually pretty handily.
Yeah, I agree. I think Houston, again, losing to Iowa State, a wake-up call for them.
Yeah, and I think losing to Iowa State, like you said, was they have to get someone aside from Jamal Shed to be the X factor. Can it be LJ Cryer or other guys? We'll see. But yeah, I think that was a wake-up call. And I agree with Ellis with his assessment as well. That defense is just too good. And I think they will I think they'll move on pretty handily, honestly.
Yeah.
James Madison, Duke. I got the upset here. I think James Madison can make this. I just think James Madison can really make this a nice track meet. They have good pace. They shoot the ball well. And Terrence Edwards, like, I've just been unimpressed by this Duke team. And I think a lot of these mid majors, they could out athleticism, out physical them. But James Madison isn't one of those teams. They're going to have the momentum from beating a good Wisconsin team. And I think Wisconsin is almost as good as Duke. So I got them going on a run now, and I got them beating Duke.
Me too. I had James Madison winning anyway, and I think they get to the Sweet 16.
Jeremy?
I got Duke in this one. I do like the upset, but I think Duke's really good. They have Kyle Filipowski. He's been incredible this year. Jared McCain's first round of NBA drafts. I just think this team has more talent than James Madison, quite honestly. So I'm picking Duke.
I think I'm gonna go with the upset and go with James Madison. I think, I think you're right that they have some of the more talent like Filipowski and McCain, like you were talking about. But I think Mark Byington is a better coach, and I think he will scheme up a great game plan to take down Duke with that style that they play with. So yeah, give me James Madison to the Sweet 16.
A John Shire shot at the end here. We got James Madison moving on. Texas Tech, though, not fully shot because James Madison's coach is really good, but Texas Tech versus Kentucky. And Kentucky just has, that was my pick. It is Kentucky, but we could change it. But Kentucky just has too much star power for this Texas Tech team. I don't know who keeps up with Rob Dillingham. I don't know who keeps up with Reed Shepherd. I don't know who keeps up with Antonio Reeves. Like, they throw so much at you. Yes, they can get sloppy and lazy on offense and defense with turnovers and just rotations. But Pop Isaacs and Joe Toussaint, right? Those are Texas Tech's top scorers. They're good. I don't want to disrespect them. I love my boy Joe Toussaint, but they just don't do it for me when looking at Kentucky's weapons.
Yeah, there will be a point where Kentucky's magic runs out in this tournament, but it will not happen here. They're going to win.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
agree.
Florida Marquette. And yes, Florida is the best rebounding team. They're tough. They're physical. They got the big guys. But as Alex said, one of their big guys. And I love to see Walter Clayton succeed outside of, he was great at Iona, but I love him succeeding at Florida. He's a great player in general. I'd love to see him make a run and him lead the team. I just don't think it's happening. I just think this is a shock smart, especially if Tyler Kolek's back. Osei Godar, like, he's a big man, but he can, as we said, that push shot, he can play around the paint as well. I think Marquette has just too much talent, too much ball movement to beat this Florida team.
Yep.
Everyone agree? All right.
Yeah.
Sounds like everyone agrees.
Yeah,
Houston, James Madison. And, I actually think James Madison, again, they could pull this upset. The reason I'm not picking it, though, is because Houston, James Madison, to my recollection, has not seen a team like Houston all year. That aggressive style, all-out attack, relentless defense. And I think they'll keep it close in the first half, but eventually they'll crumble under the intense pressure from Houston.
Yeah, I think Houston's defense is going to be too much, and the Cinderella run for James Madison ends here.
I agree and disagree with Ellis. Houston wins this game, but it's not going to be close at all.
All right, let's move on. Kentucky Marquette. I don't know about this one. I think Kentucky has the arsenal, but Marquette's just so solid. Tyler Kolek will certainly be back by this point. They could scheme John Calipari in Kentucky to death. But Reed Shepherd, dude, he's got balls. And I don't want to pick against Reed Shepherd this tournament. I'm 50-50. My vibe says Kentucky, but as I said, I'm extremely 50-50. So I don't know.
This is a toss-up game that could probably go to overtime, but I feel the same way as you. I think Kentucky just has a little bit more than Marquette.
Yeah, I agree. I just think the talent differential, not that Marquette isn't very good, but Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepherd, Antonio Reeves, it's just hard to pick against Kentucky, I think.
I think this is a game where Tyler Kolek is going to have like 8 points and like 15 assists or something ridiculous like that. I think this is just where Kentucky's youth and their defensive issues are going to kind of come back to bite them. I think Marquette moves on.
All right, Marquette, but unfortunately you are, and I don't mind that either, Alec, but you are outvoted. So Kentucky, Houston in the Elite Eight, an interesting matchup. Again, I think Kentucky has the talent to beat Houston, but can they stay disciplined? The answer is no. I think this is a Kevin Sampson class. He absolutely out coaches John Calipari, circles around John Calipari. Kentucky doesn't have the discipline. Houston kind of blows them out of the water, I think, actually. I don't think it's close.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think the same point Alec brought up, I think it just happens one round later. I think the Houston Cougars move on to the Final Four.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Houston too. I just think Reed Shepherd has been so good in the pick and roll this year, especially for a freshman at his age. But I think Jamal Shed and that system, the trapping system that you talked about before, Ellis, that Kevin Sampson runs where they blitz the pick and roll. I think it's just going to be too much for him to handle, and Rob Dillingham can't do it all alone.
All
I would
right.
pick Kentucky, but I'm happy to be outvoted.
So Jaron picks Kentucky, but he is outvoted. So Houston to the Final Four. Dude, we got 3-1 seeds in the Final Four, guys. We'll see. We'll see.
They
About
will
this.
not. At least I do not have this certain one seed.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think this is one season, the one that no one predicts.
But I do think they beat the 16 seed this time.
Yeah.
That was a fluke
Yeah.
that happened last time. Let's
Oh,
move
yeah.
on. I don't want to hear Purdue slander for the 16 seed.
Yeah.
They're a really good team.
Sure,
Lance
later.
Jones gives them that extra ball handler they didn't have him last year. Plus, Braden Smith is not the same player as last year, so he wins. Utah State, TCU. This is simple for me. I don't think TCU is very good. I really don't. Overrated. They deserve their 9 seed line, but overrated. I love Jameer Nelson as a player, but he's not good enough to lead this team. And Utah State won the regular season. Danny Sprinkle, fantastic coach. Will be on a lot of hot boards. Utah State won the regular season Mountain West title. We already talked about how they're underrated. The Mountain West is a conference. So I got Utah State. I actually got this one's not close. Blowout.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think TCU is one of, frankly, the weaker at-large teams in the NCAA tournament. And Utah State, again, I think the Mountain West is overall going to have a really strong tournament, and this will be another victory for them.
Totally.
Yeah, I forget if this was last year or 2 years ago. I think it might have been 2 years ago. I had TCU going to the Final Four, but it's not going to happen this year. Danny Sprinkle had to rebuild this team from the dead, basically, after taking over, after being at Montana State. Also, I just saw some interesting news. I'm looking through Twitter right now. Breaking news on the show, even though it'll be up in the morning. Apparently, St. Louis is in talks with Indiana State's Josh Schertz to make him the head coach. Deal isn't done, but the two sides are in discussions. So
I
that's
feel like Josh
something
Schertz would want to go somewhere bigger, no, but maybe not. Who knows? That's a great hire.
I feel like
Louis, though.
Yeah, I feel like he could get a better job. But anyways, also the NIT bracket just got released, and I'm doing some self-realization that I'm really watching the NIT selection show for the second year in a row to see if Rutgers will get in. They didn't.
Yeah, that sounds surprising. Seton Hall got a 1 seed, right?
They did. Princeton got it. Princeton got the 2 seed in that same region.
Oh,
That'll be a good game. But anyway, yeah, Jerry, why do you have Utah State?
I'm with you guys. I just
Alright.
don't think TCU is very good. I think Utah State is a good team. They've been playing very, very well. They've had a complete turnaround, and yeah.
All right. Gonzaga McNeese, bring on the upset. This Gonzaga team, overrated. Should not be a 5 seed. And this McNeese team, Will Wade is a gangster. He's fantastic coach, though. A bit of a tampering one, but fantastic coach nonetheless. He's got ballers. Shahada Wells is a baller, and he will probably go somewhere next year really good unless he's out of eligibility. I actually don't know his class, but he is a baller. Kristen Shoemate is also fantastic and a scrapper down low. Gonzaga's Sweet 16 run record is over. They don't have anyone to match the physicality. Mark Few still thinks he's a great coach, but they just don't have anyone to match the physicality, the toughness. McNeese want this. Will Wade wants this. He wants revenge on the NCAA for sanctioning him. And yeah, I think McNeese wins this.
yeah. I don't want to compare Gonzaga to Rutgers in any way. They are a much better program, much better team, but they're in a similar spot where, unlike other years, they don't have that, that dog that I think can lead them. Graham Ike is a good player, but you think about Sabonis to Suggs and Holmgren and Timmy. They don't really have that this year. I don't think Ike is at that same caliber, and McNeese is going to be able to win this one.
Yeah, I'm with the upset pick too. Shahada Wells, he has one more year, so if he does transfer, it'll be his 4th school. So that's something to look out for. But either way, all I'm saying is that everything that Will Wade did, most of the things that Will Wade did in the past is legal now. That's all I'm saying.
That is true, actually. I was harsh on him.
He's going to get picked up by a high major at some point this offseason. I'm very confident in that. And yeah, I just think they are I forget which team we were talking about before, where it was Grand Canyon, where their style of play is completely reckless. I think McNeese State is reckless in a good way, and I agree with Eddie. They just don't really have that guy this year. They have Anton Watson, who's played really well, but I think Wells and Shoemate, leading that team. I mean, they're just off to some great things right now. I think they pull the upset.
Well, not that it matters, but I do think I would pretty handily pick Gonzaga here. I do agree they've been a bit overrated, but I still do think tournament pedigree matters and that this is a team that's been here before that won't panic under the spotlight. I still think they have been a good team. Graham Ike, I believe how you say it, has been very good. They've won 9 consecutive. I think to me, I'm okay with the upset, but I kind of think Gonzaga's going to end up handling this handily.
Jeremy dissents, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And hey, Will Wade coach your favorite player, Alec. Naz Reid. Anyway, Kansas versus Samford. Upset. Kansas is overrated. Fuck Hunter Dickinson. Not a good player. Does all the big things right. Does none of the little things right. And that's why no one in the NBA, why would Hunter Dickinson get drafted? Have you ever seen him box out? I've never seen a 7-foot man box out worse. It's horrendous. And this Samford team, not only are they fun to watch, you could fall in love with them. They are quick. They'll chuck up 1,000,001 threes, and they're going to be hitting today. Also, Kansas, more realistically, Bill Self is a fantastic coach, but Kansas is a little banged up right now, and Kevin McCullough is banged up. And without Kevin McCullough, who's getting the bucket for them? I guess John Furphy, but he's been I really like John Furphy, but he's also been a little inconsistent recently. Overrated Dickinson. Don't give me any of that Dickinson crap. My one issue is actually, even though I'm picking this an upset, Dickinson cannot, Samford doesn't have a lot of size or strength. So Dickinson can go absolutely off in this game. Then again, maybe he'll get outboxed out by a 6-footer for about the upteenth time in his career. So who knows? So I got Samford.
Yeah, this is my second biggest upset in my personal bracket. I mean, Kansas essentially just load managed the Big 12 tournament. Their top 2 players didn't even play, and they're both hurt. And Hunter Dickinson is extremely overrated. And Samford is another sneaky team of these mid-majors that had a really good season, and it was reflected in the metrics. So I like Samford here, and we're going to get a very interesting Samford-McNeese matchup in the round of 32.
Yeah, here's my thing. I just don't know if they're. I just don't know if I don't know if it's sustainable. Is what I will say. Granted, this was November 6th, way back when at the beginning of the season. They went to Mackey, played against Purdue, and lost by 50. So I just don't know how sustainable their level of play is. I think Kansas is going to win. I think they got healthy, like you said. They load managed the Big 12 tournament. I think McCullough and Dickinson are supposed to be available. In this game, I think Kansas is going to play a much closer game than there should be between a 13 and a 4 seed. But I think Kansas moves on. But Samford, I mean, they put up a good fight and they make it close for a while. But ultimately, the talent wins out.
I'm going with Samford. I think this is a good upset pick. Agree that even if Kevin McCullough and Hunter Dickinson are there, we don't know if they're going to be 100%. And we don't even 100% sure that they're going to be there. Samford's been playing very well. They've been incredible in 3 points. I believe they connected on 39% this season. I'm going with Samford.
Yeah, I will say I hope they have that bald guy, 6-foot guy try to do the tip with Hunter Dickinson again. That'd be really funny. Or not Hunter Dickinson, with another tall guy again, because they did it against Zach Edey. South Carolina, Oregon, 2 teams I think are a little overrated in my opinion, but South Carolina is more overrated. Yes, Michi Johnson's great. BJ Mack, though, a little inconsistent. They just went on a super hot run in January. But if you look outside of their January, they've been good and they've still exceeded expectations. So they should be applauded for that. But they haven't been that great. Now, Oregon's kind of the same way. But what I really had about Oregon is I was a big Nafali Dante kind of guy, but he really struggled early on. Well, this has been his breakout year. And inside, I don't know who South Carolina goes to stop Nafali Dante. You saw that in the Colorado game in the Pac-12 championship. Nafali Dante dominated inside. I think he does that again. I think he beats South Carolina.
Yeah, Oregon's a weird story where with Dana Altman, when they're a highly projected, highly rated team in the tournament, they don't do well. But when their backs are against the wall and they have to win their conference to get in, then they make things happen. South Carolina, 26-7. A lot of that is because of a cupcake non-conference schedule compared to some other SEC teams. I think Oregon moves on.
Yeah, this is going to be a really tough game because South Carolina, I mean, Ellis, like you said, they went on that huge win streak and it's from the end of January to early February, but they got absolutely boat raced by Auburn and then lost a heartbreaker to LSU the next game out, which did not have a good season. And then they got blown out by Auburn once again. I just don't know how replicable their run has been. Like you said, Michi Johnson's been great since he came over from Ohio State, but yeah, I do think Oregon has the best player on the floor within Pauly Dante. I just think he's going to be too dynamic to overcome. I think Oregon pulls off an upset. And I mean, Dana Altman already said he's coming back next year, but he is somehow once again fending off any questions about his job security.
All right, Oregon. Jeremy, I assume Oregon sweep.
Yep, I'm down with that.
All right, Creighton, Akron. Listen, I actually really like this Creighton team, and Akron shouldn't even be here. They just got so lucky that dude intentionally fouled them. Breeze by. I got Creighton beating
Yep.
Akron.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
Creighton's
will be a
fantastic.
blowout.
Oh, this is cool. I didn't realize ESPN shows how many the percentage of seeding, but I didn't realize that. But either way, I got Creighton. Texas, UVA, Colorado State. Now I think Colorado State absolutely blows out UVA, but I think Texas wins, even though I don't love this Texas team, but I think it comes down. I don't know. I think it comes down. I can see Colorado State easily beating Texas, but also I think if the game comes down to the final seconds, right, which is how I'm projecting the game to go, Max Amos, one more tournament hero time for him, formerly on Oral Roberts. Hey, you remember that story? Well, now he's on Texas. I think he delivers them a clutch shot and wins. But I would not be mad at all with Colorado State University. But maybe you guys have UVA. I don't know. That'd be kind of crazy to me.
No way. UVA should not be in the tournament. Of these three teams, I think all three of these teams are not the flashiest, but the team I like the most out of this mix is Texas.
See, I'm going to go with Colorado State. I've liked them all year long, and that's kind of just how I felt with the Mountain West as a whole, that I've really liked them all year long, and maybe that's kind of clouding my judgment a little bit. But Isaiah Stevens has been such a great player so far. They're battle-tested in the Mountain West. They took some bad losses here and there, like to Wyoming back in January. They had a tough 3-game losing streak, and they fell in the semifinal round. But I just think they're playing too well right now. I think that they move on. They beat Texas too, which I mean, Texas has been kind of underwhelming under Rodney Terry. I mean, is Dylan Dessou I don't think Dylan Dessou is healthy, but they have Max Abmas. I think it's going to be a close game, but not enough.
All right. Oh, sorry, Jeremy, who you got?
Oh, no. I was just agreeing.
You got Texas or Colorado State?
Got Texas, absolutely.
All right. Tennessee, St. Peter's. Now, this is an interesting one. I think the
Shout
St.
out our one jersey. In the
one
tournament.
jersey. But the thing is, I actually don't think Corey Washington's all that good. I know some people are gonna hype him up. I think he's been good for St. Peter's. I think when he plays the defense like Tennessee, he's gonna come against problems. Outside of Corey Washington, no one will really score. I watched St. Peter's up close in person when they played Rutgers, and they just don't really got a lot of go-getters. Tennessee can get in a rut. We know Rick Barnes struggles in the NCAA tournament, but they got Dalton Connect this year, and he's gonna guide them past St. Peter's pretty easily. Though I do like the toughness of the St. Peter's team. I will say, if they can make this game in the mud, they could possibly win. But I just think Corey Washington's a little overrated, and I think this St. Peter's team isn't very good.
Yeah, agree. Tennessee wins easily.
My heart's with St. Peter's, but Tennessee is just better.
But yeah,
I forget who said it, but St. Peter's, I also watched them up close when they played Rutgers. They're a team that shoots to rebound, I guess.
someone
forget
said
who
that. That's a great point.
I forget who said it, but yeah, they shoot to rebound. And it led to only scoring 40 points against Rutgers. But yeah, I just think Dalton Connect has been too good. If they didn't have if this was last year's Tennessee team placed in the 2 seed against this year's St. Peter's team, I would have given them more of a chance. But because they have Dalton Connect, who's playing like probably the second best player in the country this entire season, they're gonna roll.
All right, Purdue, Utah State. Ugh, this is where it gets a little tough, guys. But I'm going to stick with Purdue, and I'm going to stick with Purdue because of Lance Jones. He's really impressed me. Again, that extra ball handler means so much, but he's also a great defender. He adds that toughness, which Purdue needs, and they use that toughness to get past Utah State.
Yeah, I agree. I have Purdue losing eventually here, but they got really lucky with the region they're in.
Yeah, I think
McNeese,
Purdue. I think Purdue has just been too good. I agree.
McNeese, Sanford, and I got McNeese. They're just Will Wade. Like I'm taking the coach. I'm taking Will Wade, and I'm taking the coach. I'm taking the player. Will Wade and Shahada Wells to get past Sanford. Sanford's hot shooting runs out here. I got McNeese.
This is in my bracket the one real surprise team I have in the Sweet 16. There's always one team that randomly does it with the vibes. I think Samford uses the momentum from beating Kansas and surprises McNeese as well. Reminiscent to how St. Peter's 2 years ago got the upset win over a blue blood and then beat a highly rated mid-major team in Murray State. Samford does the same thing here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm fully going with Sanford. I'm all in on this team, and I don't really think McNeese should have been here in the first place. And I just don't think they're that good. I think it's Sanford.
I'm
Alec.
gonna go with I'm gonna go with Samford too. I just
Oof.
feel like they're gonna play McNeese's game a little bit better. Honestly, trying to just wreak havoc on the court. And I think they're gonna have an upstart run to the Sweet 16. I think they take this one.
Oregon, Creighton. I got Creighton. I don't think this. I know because they have the Folly Dante, right? But Creighton can easily counter that with Ryan Kalkbrenner. So I think this is a blowout, and I got Creighton.
Me too.
See, Tennessee, Texas. I got Tennessee because the thing is, I don't think the Texas team is all that good. Dylan Disu, if he does play a little banged up, Max Amos is a bucket, but Tennessee can easily just, easily out physical him and Dalton. Who's gonna guard Dalton Connect? I'm not. I don't know anyone in Texas can. I don't think anyone in Texas can. So I got Tennessee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tennessee, I think, wins this one pretty easily as well.
Else you put Texas.
Oh, sorry. Purdue Sanford. I mean, Purdue beat Sanford by 50. They're not going to beat them
Yeah.
by 50, but they're going to win. Anyone disagree?
Yeah. No.
Nope,
Nope.
no disagree there. Purdue moves on.
And Creighton, Tennessee. I don't know. This one's hard for me. This one's really hard. I got Creighton. I got Creighton. No, know what? I got Creighton just because Rick Barnes always chokes somehow, and it's no different this year. Dalton Connect goes off, but everyone else in Tennessee can't shoot. Meanwhile, Creighton just consistent offensive attack. But this one, I don't know. I could go 50-50 on this one.
Yeah, I think Creighton wins too, but I think in a different way. I think they really hone in defensively on Dalton Connect, and I just don't think the Volunteers have enough there besides Connect to really step up and keep pace with the Creighton offense that was battle tested all year long in the Big East. So the Blue Jays, for me, are moving to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I agree with Eddie and Ellis. I think Creighton moves on. I think they just find a way to find a way. I think Ryan Kalkbrenner has a great game, even though Jonas Ado is a pretty good center. I think Kalkbrenner is just a lot better. And I mean, this might be one of the better matchups between Purdue and Creighton if it does happen.
Not that my opinion matters, but I do also think Creighton makes it.
All right, finally, to finish out the Midwest, Purdue versus Creighton. And this is a team Purdue does not want to see because I think if they have Tennessee, you could put Lance Jones on Connect, make his life a little difficult, and win that game. But Ryan Kalkbrenner is actually not talked about enough as very, very good. And then you look at the guard play, and yes, Purdue's guards are great, and their Matt Painter's system is great. But this is just Creighton has just produced kryptonite, in my opinion, if they were to play. And I think Creighton wins a close game, but they win it.
Yeah, I think Creighton is the only team that realistically can beat Purdue. Obviously, it's been proven that any team can beat Purdue in the NCAA tournament, but it just makes sense. And I think Ryan Kalkbrenner ends Zach Edey's college career, and Creighton moves to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in agreement too.
All right, Final Four, UConn, North Carolina. And I'm sorry, this new UConn team, if they do get here, I know I had Iowa State winning, and I would have had Iowa State in my final just for my personal bracket. But that should tell you how I feel about UNC. And I think UConn, it'll be a good game because UNC can keep up because they got the shot makers, but I got UNC overall.
Nope, I disagree. I don't even have UNC in the Final Four.
Sorry, I got UConn overall. My bad. I got UConn overall. I completely missaid that. UConn, I understand UNC can keep up because they're shot makers, but the system Danny Hurley runs is way too strong, and I'm not that high on UNC to begin with, even though I think they run through an easy Western side of the bracket. So I got UConn. I think it's not a blowout, but not close either. Sorry, Eddie.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I personally have UConn Baylor in the Final Four in my bracket, like a early 20 teens women's basketball elite team battle in the Final Four. But I think UNC, same story as Baylor, doesn't have enough, and UConn has, frankly, more shooters that can make bigger plays than both of those teams. So UConn gets back to the championship.
Yeah, you guys said it. I think UConn's just significantly better than North Carolina.
All right.
I agree.
And finally, Houston Creighton. Now, I know I'm probably going to pick Houston. I am going to pick Houston, but I think, and if we do pick Houston, I think we have to understand Creighton does have a way to beat these guys. They have the dominant center that can bang down low, and they have great passers in Ashworth and Alexander and ball handlers to beat those blitzes. So I think Creighton's actually a good matchup for Houston, but at some point, Kelvin Sampson is going to beat the hump, and I think he wins and takes Houston to the Final Four, to the final.
Yeah, this is the year Houston gets it done and moves to the championship. I think this is a really close game, but I like the Cougars' mojo this year.
I'm going to keep riding the Creighton train. I think they just find a way to win. They did it last year, almost getting to the Final Four last year. I think they get over that hump this year to set up, I guess, what will be I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, revenge game for the people who thought the Big East was doubted upon for only having 3 teams in. Having 2 of those 3 teams make the national championship would be a pretty good way to show the haters.
Yeah, you know what? We're gonna send this to the Vibes Man for the final one because I'm also rolling with Creighton. I think they've been very good. They've had an incredible season, and I think they go on a run.
Five men, Creighton, Houston, who's going to the championship game? A lot of weight on your shoulders.
Well, I wasn't ready for this. Oh boy.
You're definitely on deep in Red Sox Twitter. I saw you tweet 2 minutes ago.
Well, I've actually been, applying to jobs, doing some work, doing a little of this, a little of that.
Houston, Creighton, what's your vibe?
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the logos.
Oh God.
Okay. All right. His first name is Baylor. I don't like that. I'm gonna go with Houston.
I thought you were going to pick Creighton for some reason. But all right, that sets up a Houston UConn final matchup and the tiebreakers. How many total points will be scored in the championship game? I liked it better when they did score, but who cares? Whatever. I don't know. I think that would be such an intriguing matchup. Just a coaching masterclass between 2 masterclass coaches. Can Houston's defense disrupt UConn enough? If there's any defense in the league to do it, it's, as I said, it's Iowa State and Houston. I already said that in the episode earlier in the episode. Let's go Houston. Why not? I mean, these are the 2 best teams in college basketball. We know it. So I think these are the 2. Yeah, let's go Houston. Let's go Houston. And points scored, I guess I'll choose the tiebreaker regardless. And if it is Houston UConn, it's going to be a lower scoring game. I'm going to go Houston 69. UConn 65, so what? That's 134. So 134. But does everyone have a different opinion?
Yes, I feel like this is going to be a great tournament that, like the Gonzaga Baylor year, ends in an anticlimactic championship game where UConn rolls. I think Houston's defense gets exposed like it did against Iowa State, and their offense gets shut down in the championship by UConn, and Connecticut becomes the first team since Billy Donovan's Gators to win back-to-back. My final score, I'll say this is like a 12-point game. I'll go 70-58, which I guess points-wise would put me at 128.
All right.
No, I believe it was the mid-2000s when those Gators played and went back-to-back.
Yep.
Yes.
And I don't think it happens again. I think it's Houston. I think their trap defense, they lock down. I agree. I think this is even a lower score game. I think it ends up being 62-59 Houston.
Wow, that is a low scoring game. Alec, what do you got for us? Will we send the final to Mr. Wiseman?
I'm gonna go with Houston. I think.
I
think there's gonna be a higher scoring game, honestly, than people think. I think it's gonna be a 74-67 Houston win. I just think they're too dynamic defensively. But this is gonna be, if this is the championship game, I think this is the best possible matchup because it's the best offensive play designer and the best defensive play designer in the country for college basketball. I would be over the moon if this would be the national championship because I think these 2 teams bring so much firepower to the table. And I mean, no matter who wins, it'll be an instant classic, I think.
And I'm gonna get a little more specific. It'll be 66-65 Houston, and Jamal Shed hits a step back 3, prompting a Bill Rafferty onions. And that will be it. So let's submit the bracket. And that is our bracket. Thank you. Oh, my dress. That's our bracket. Thank you for going along because of such a long episode. Wait. I should not do my address.
No,
I'm
you're
sharing
doxing
screen.
yourself here.
Yeah, I don't know why you even thought
That was
doing
almost, I forgot we were sharing our screen. That was almost the Josh Myers moment. Luckily, I
Shout out.
found out first. I'll have to cut that out of the video podcast. But yeah. All right. That is week nine of our predictions game. Stay tuned on our Twitter for results. And that's it for episode 175 of the Who's on Top podcast. A very much longer one than we necessarily wanted, but it's March Madness, so you can't hate it. Subscribe to our podcast. Now we're on all the major directories. Who's on Top? WHO podcast. Space ON, space TOP. We're obviously most listened to on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Leave a 5-star rating and review because we know you loved it. Follow the podcast, like the episode, and turn notifications so you always know when new episodes are out. Again, we're on all major directories, but most listened to on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to start a podcast, use Buzzsprout today. They're a great hosting platform, aesthetically pleasing, simple to use, and they get you in all the major directories. You gotta love it. We use it. They're great. You can get a free plan or paid plan. Paid plan comes with an Amazon gift card if that's your thing. And yeah, if you do a podcast, so can you. So get going. Tell the world about whatever you want to talk about. Hey, and about our podcast, if you want to be a subscriber, you can do that too. You get no extra content, but you go to the Broke Boy College Fund. So gotta love it, and you gotta support the show. So do that as well. We're on social media, Watt.podcast, WOT.PODCAST, capital W, Twitter and Instagram. Twitter, you always is the best place to check our standings game. We post the games to look out for. Post the standings updates, the history of the standings game, all that jazz is there. Plus, we're interactive over there with polls and questions. Highlights of the episode always go on Twitter, and you always know when the new episode's out. Plus, the link to our episodes are in our Twitter bio. Same thing with Instagram. Link to our episodes are in our Instagram bio. There's the best place to keep track of our Hall of Fame, Hall of Shame. We just added a new Hall of Shame-me, and those are in the highlights tab in our Instagram. So check out all the Famies, check out all the Shamies, and all the other episodes while you're there as well. Plus, we have highlights of the episode themselves on Instagram. You always know when the new episode's out, and face shops of our faces on your favorite players. Again, that's WOT.PODCAST, capital W. If you want to follow the podcast, I'm one of the directories. That's Who's on Top, WHO, podcast, space ON, space TOP. And with that, hope you had a good week. Stay safe, stay healthy. Hope you enjoyed this March Madness version of the podcast. And goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.